Thereby the matter would ultimately and irrevocably be finally decided, and at last taught, because the earth human is owed not a single further postponement. In the name of creation, it is this, truly and infalsifiably, and of noblest form. Praise be the truth of the word of truth. Canon 42 on the psyche. And the nerves are carriers and holders of a yet finer tissue still invisible to the human being, a tissue that is a reason, in itself, namely the tissue of the psyche, which finally concentrates itself in the human being's chest. Through the nerves, the human being perceives all materialness that is located within and outside of him, so he receives all material painful and pleasant impressions of feeling. But the psyche's tissue reason also perceives the finely structured which is located within and outside of the human being. Therefore, it can also have a spiritual fine sensitive feeling of all that which is finely painful, and also of the pleasant impressions. However, the psyche's tissue reason is connected with the realm of the spirit form in the sense that the tissue has an effect like an antenna and can receive, by spiritual fine sensitive feeling, from the spheres of the spirit all that which is finely structured. As a result, that which is finer and nobler will always float over materialness and, therefore, the spirit above the material consciousness, and the psyche above the body, with which the psyche is connected in a wondrous way, however. Truly, the creational standing rules and regulations in any kind of life are and remain inviolable, and they will always remain the same. If the human being is trying to make the tiniest of changes in those standing rules and regulations or to lead the slightest argument against them, sickness and destruction of the entire body will be caused. If a human being mutilates a plant, it will then become stunted, and when he deprives it of the possibility to draw up nourishment, it then bleaches, withers and dies. It is equally so with the body of animals and with the human being's body, which is actually nothing else than the tool of the immortal spirit, by virtue of which it can communicate with the world and connect its I with it. And truly, a law-breaking disturbance of the laws and recommendations of life leads here to illness and to the ruin of the whole. If the human being destroys the spirit's tool, the body, the means by which the spirit or the spirit force appropriates outer things, he then destroys the bridge through which he is connected from the spirit field to the nature on earth and, through it, with other spirit levels. Through such a destruction, the spirit form is lost for life on earth and for the world and, as a result, nobody can communicate with it any longer, and it is no longer able to evolve itself. For this reason, the tool's health and completeness are to be maintained with all possible and lawful and recommendation-related means. And the preservation of the health of one's body is one of the human being's first responsibilities, just as this duty is always fulfilled within the bounds of the creational principles, by operation, autolog transplantations, blood transfusion, intake of medicine, etc. Canon 49. In the name of creation, the wise, the righteous. Praise be creation that is in all things. And the prophet again gives a word from Semyes, the daughter of Shwishpatha. The really spiritually and consciously striving one is a noble artist. Tender spirit, gentle presence, full of love, knowledge, wisdom, and great mind. He has the highest sensitivity for truth, balance, beauty, and spiritual consciousness progress. His life is controlled, pure, and elevated, and his perspectives are very wide. His entire sense is magnanimous, and beauty presses itself into his plain life full of spiritual dignity. His inner peace brings a beauty that no artist can paint and no poet may describe in words. His spiritual purity exercises a power of attraction that no music, yet so harmonic, can express. His security cannot be put on a par with anything, and no boundaries can put an end to his striving and goal. His wisdom is an ever-present light which illuminates the deepest darkness. It is not like a light of the day that can be overcome by the darkness of the night. It is also not similar to the light of a great human thinker who entirely always then denies it, and this he also often does if he especially requires it the most. His presence is an all-present outpouring of the eternity that never passes away, while the scent of the most beautiful and most fragrant rose or orchid of the world fades away and disappears in the times of the endlessness. It is absolutely untrue that the human is the measure of all things, because the measure of all things is the spirit. The human himself is a very multi-layered being, and his various shells conceal other parts of his real personality. Indeed, he may identify with his coarse material physical body and correspond to its requirements, and he may equate himself with a conscious understanding, or himself feel his oneness with the real self of himself, which is the eternal, imperishable witness of both. Yet he may not create himself. All the vital intentions, so valuable as they always may be in their human place, cannot, in the long run, hold the consciousness essence under their enslavement or subjugate it, without bringing the innate personality into total disorder. In the uncreational thinking human, the material intellect, with all its given restrictions, takes the highest most place, and through this has to result to monstrously slow development of the spirit and the consciousness. The spiritual intellect must be quite consciously developed through the consciousness, because it is not sufficient to think that it moves in higher forms of its own volition. The human material intellect may only move in a perfect circle of possibilities. Always it remains stuck on the surface of the objects and may not impress into them and become one with them, because without a complete identity with the object its knowledge is absolutely impossible. If a human wants to know his fellow humans, then he must be able to identify with them. And if a human wants to know a material, then he must likewise be able to identify with it. The material intellect takes on the testimony of the material mind and the resulting deduced logical conclusions, but rejects the deepest subjective inspiration. Deep-grounded insight reveals to the human the understanding that yet something more is in him than that which is transmitted by his usual consciousness, something that is the origin of all thoughts, perceptions and feelings, a finer consciousness and spiritual presence, that always leaves him unsatisfied with bare material striving. The doctrine that the usual material state of the human is not the real and final grade of the life, that he possesses a deeper, more penetrating life in life itself, a true self, an immortal spirit, a light that never, and through nothing, can be extinguished, had always been claimed by the thinkers of all times and all universes over all great times. All great spiritual thinkers of all the universes always raise again the unanimous demand that the actual self gets to know the life of life. While the bodily organism itself changes every moment, and the thoughts well up like gusts of wind and again disappear, the real self is never lost. It penetrates everything completely, although it is entirely different from everything, because its form is pure spiritual. It is the fundamental origin of all sense of identity through innumerable transformations.